Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. You're watching OBN Horn of Africa. This is Talk to OBN show. I'm joined by Dr. Susan Tatah, a Cameroonian Pan-Africanist based in Germany. She is founder and program host on Pan-African Daily TV. Dr. Susan Tatah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so very much. I'm welcome.
Would you like to tell us about the workers that being undergone by your organization and by your TV in promoting Pan-Africanism?
First of all, I want to thank all of you and greetings to all my people in the Horn of Africa. That is where our heart lies, the land of the origins, is our origin of humanity, Ethiopia. I salute all of you, particularly the great women on that continent that and that particular country that have been honored a couple of times to visit. And so I want to say good afternoon here from Germany and good morning to you out there. Yes, we've been doing not so bad since 2020 at the outbreak of Pan-Africanism. We saw a lot of the awakening. Africans are getting to begin to gain consciousness in one way or the other. You can see the mindset shift paradigm. Young Africans are rising up and reclaiming their history. They want to know more about the past. They are decolonizing. They are posting images of, great founders like Haile Selassie, of Ethiopia, like Kwame Nkrumah, like Marcus Garvey. All these movements are beginning to gain ground now on a very positive note. And it is thanks to our work on the Pan-African Daily TV, when we officially launched it last year, that we start bringing these voices together to build the Africa we want in accordance with the Agenda 2063 of the Africa Union, to play our role and to contribute in building the Africa through shaping our own narratives. But to do that, we have to go back to our history. Thank you.
The intro of your show usually says unity, consciousness, culture, spirituality, history, one Africa for Africans worldwide. What does it mean by?
Of course, it's the motto of the 21st century decade, which is, we are calling it the awakening of the Africa. The awakening of the Africa is one Africa for Africans worldwide. We all know from our colonial history that Africa was one country before the Germans sat in Berlin Conference 1884 to chop up this continent into pieces. So the one question that we keep asking ourselves why we're getting awoke is, how were we before? How was the continent? Was it just a whole space of continent where countries, indigenous cultures were not divided? And we realized that not only by the partition of Berlin 1884, there was also the slavery. The enslaved people on the continent, particularly from the West Africa, were taken and put out, distributed out there in the Americans, in the Caribbeans, and everywhere we find the African people. So it is time for us to unite. And uniting how? Because this is not the first time that we are getting into this awakening of Pan-Africanism, right? This is almost the third wave of this awakening. So how do we unite? We have to go back to our history, to our indigenous culture, to our spirituality. I mean, like, what were, for instance, which God were our ancestors or the people of Africa worshiping before the Europeans came and brought religion unto us? So the motto is so strong to say that we need one African agenda for Africans worldwide. If you are an African, you are Black, you know you come from the continent of Africa. It doesn't matter where you are, whether they call you Afro-European, or like in Germany, they call them now Afro-Germans. In the UK, they are called Afro-Britain. In America, they're called African-American. In Jamaican, and Haiti, and Brazil, and Mexico, West Guinea, Papua, all over the globe where the African is connected. We are saying, if you are Black, even the multicolors that we're diverse, you come from the continent of Africa. And that is the motto, one Africa for Africans worldwide.
Appreciate it. Okay. very handful personalities these days are striving to awaken the pacified Pan-Africanism and the Pan-African agenda these days. Why the idea and the agenda of the ever existed Pan-African ideology pacified this day, you think?
I think every generation has a responsibility, and we see in terms of the global transformation and the systematic or even technology, the way it is moving. So no generation would be able to fit in a particular agenda. If we look at the economic and the revolution and digitalization and everything, like you see, my channel is being hosted on a digital platform. We are connecting on a digital platform. It means there is a shift in the generation, in the mindset, and in also in terms of technology. What does this actually mean? So it will be impossible for us to go to a unique agenda, like to say the agenda where the Kwame Nkrumahs actually declared, or the African Union. You see, the dynamics are changing. So the generation of this time are changing. But what does it mean to us? It means there is a fundamental cry of the African, be it from the elders of the past or from the present generation. The elders are coming, they are talking. And you can see the transition from the previous Patrice Emery Lumumba to the present PLO Patrice Lumumba now. And you can see this evolution. We have also voices on the continent, in the diaspora, that have always been on the movement. We're talking about Dr. Leonard Jeffries. We're talking about Professor James Small. All these collectives, Professor Obenga, Professor Obati Shaka, they are the voices that have been in the movement of the unity of the Negro and the African people for decades, for more than 500 decades. So changing in the paradigm or the passivity doesn't change the voice, the one voice for one Africa everywhere. Africa wants to be united. We don't want colonial boundaries anymore. The boundaries that are politically initiated through colonization, through Western agendas, through the partition of the Berlin Conference, is what the Africans is suffering today. We look at Ethiopia and say Ethiopia is different from Ghana. Ghana is different from Togo. Togo is different from Cameroon and from South Africa. So all this chopping and putting us against one another. Look at the conflicts in Ethiopia and between Tigray. These are brothers. All of us are one people. We come from one continent and one motherland. So it doesn't matter whether the agenda is political. We are going back to the indigenous boundaries of the African in the mind to say that we are one people. Before the colonialists came, before the imperialists came, before neocolonialism that is being meted upon us through another form, through the leadership on the continent, we are one people, and we want to see ourselves as one people. It doesn't matter whether you are operating from the continent or in the diaspora. That is why one reason that we're also advocating, it is no more about the geographical space. It is no more whether I am sitting here in Germany, you are there on the Horn of Africa. What connects us should be our unity and our personality and our culture, our belief system. That is what should unite us. It doesn't matter where we are.
Africa is being led with the blessing of the West these days, right? And the Africans' psycho makeup is all about Westerners' reality. There is a so-called neo-colonialism status quo in all African nations. What ought to be done to decolonize the ever colonized psycho makeup of Africans?
I think, my brother, this one is very critical and fundamental. That is what I call the A to Z of Africa, starting with anything. From A to Z is decolonization. It's like detoxing a system that an African would look at itself, but see whiteness in its skin. An Africa would go to church, but see a white Jesus, not see a black person. An African would sit in the classroom from education, they are taught about images like snow, where they are the reality on the continent, they have never seen snow. The books that we read teaches us more about European history than African history. As an African child, anything about his continent, they know nothing about it. That is why you see even the movement of the migrant leaving Africa, young people dying in the Mediterranean, coming to Europe, looking for greener pastures because the image is in the brain. Now, what is the European doing? It is the same thing, like I'm sitting here. The European is busy selling its culture and its ideologies. They don't care who they meet, that you buy it. You look at from all cultural centers and their embassies on the continent. But you look at here in Germany, you don't have even one center that is called African Center that represent the ideologies of the African from an African perspective, that even gives information to the German and the Western media about Africa, that represents the African telling his own story from his own perspective, that tells you that an African everywhere is an African, a Black man, whether you are a governor or an ambassador or a president. If you are walking on any street in Europe or the West, you are an African. They don't care which country you are from. A Black man is a Black man. And so the images of corruption, of hunger, of diseases, of wars, of tribal conflict, it is the status quo of the African everywhere. And we keep telling our leaders, we keep telling every African, do not bother to say, oh, I am having a white collar job, I am a PhD, I'm living well, I'm economically stable, my family is stable. The image of an African child and an African woman that is being put there to represent poverty and hunger and diseases represents the whole continent. It doesn't matter what your status quo is, whether you are a president or you are a leader, you are seen in the eyes of a small European child as an African that is in conflict with itself. It doesn't matter whether you are from Ethiopia, you are from the Tigray region, you are from South Sudan, you are from Southern Cameroon, you are from South Africa and the Apartheid, or you are any place on the continent. The pictures, the image, the narrative that the African, the European child, the Chinese child, the Indian child sees about an African is a continent at conflict, in war, in diseases, in poverty with itself. So it is upon us, the African, to start from your own self. When you change the image and the narrative from your perspective, then you would go a long way to change the continent as a whole. So we are calling on every African.
Let me interrupt you here.
Thank you.
Previously, you've said that what ought to be done is the brainwashing, the psycho makeup of Africans. You also alluded that Africans are, and African people are intoxicated with the Westerners' way of life, probably. But how would this possible? Because it might take millennia to brainwash. Africans among us themselves don't have common virtues. If you go to the West, the Francophones have culture of France, whereas the Anglophones got the UK and the England's way of livelihood, baggage full of neo-colonialism, psycho makeup as well. How could brainwashing easily possible to make Africans have a same status quo, of same virtue to bring United Kingdom of Africa?
Yes, I think that's a very relevant question, because that is exactly the point where we are. The point is we have to go back to our educational system. That is the number one fundamental. We talk about Pan-Africanism. What does an African understand as Pan-Africanism? That is the first fundamental question. And when we take that ideology of Pan-Africanism and we put the identity into it, then we can start from the basis to mobilize organizations that are already awake. And that is the work that we are doing with the Africa We Want a platform now. It means what? We are calling on all Pan-Africans that are already having the notion of a wake up, just the notion, to register under the Africa We Want a non-profit organization, because we have to collect all the data. When we get the organization, then we can start working on teaching just the idea of Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism has been abused into a political agenda. I'm telling you, I was invited in Ethiopia in 2014 by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, and we worked on APAO, the indigenous first university per excellence that would start the teaching and the fundamentals of Pan-Africanism. And we had that as a conference 3 days in APAO in Adowa, where we visited even the site of colonization that were never colonized. And so we could take that model from APAO to multiply it on the entire continent. Even though we only had that conference, and the follow-up is, but at least Ethiopian government gave us an opening to say, you children of Africa, there were 2,000 that were invited all over the world on that conference, entirely sponsored, from flight to hotels, to meals, to everything by the Ethiopian government. And I loved this initiative, and I love this country, and I respect this country. And we are coming 2022 to launch this organization, the Africa We Want platform, in Ethiopia. Why? Because they gave us the roadmap. They engineered us and told us, go to the world, bring this vision in your communities. That is where we have to start. It is not an organization, not the work of one single person. Education of the African, like Marcus Garvey said, the miseducation of the Negro is what we're suffering from today. And bet to you, my brother, the West is not stopping us from educating our people about their color, about their identity, about their indigenous culture, about their belief system. But we have to go back to a classroom format where the communities are mobilized and we start teaching one another from our homes. The parents teaching their children to love themselves, to love their color, to love their hair, to love what they eat, to represent. It sounds basic, but these are the fundamentals. When we go to church, who do we worship? Who do we pray to? What do we believe in? When we are eating, it doesn't mean that we will not collaborate with China or anything, but China has an indigenous culture. Who do they worship? Who do they do business with? They are proud of themselves. Africa these days don't support each other. Why? Because we've been taught that anything white is better than anything black. But back to you, one last thing. Europe had also what they call Europeanism. Europeanism means Pan-Africanism in a European context. So we also have to go back to start teaching what Pan-Africanism is all about. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, another question. The act of neo-colonialism is hitting Africa so badly these days, right? In what way should Africans say no to this attempt?
They're already doing it, but it will not bring anything, because when we talk about neo-colonialism, what does it mean? I take myself as an example. I can be a perfect example of neo-colonialism if I am not conscious. I studied in Germany. I've been in Germany with my family for 23 years, right? My children go to school here. I'm a German by nationality, right? So what does it mean for me as an African? It means somehow I am a product also that has been taught by the West. Now I come to my continent and I begin to promote the values of Germany. Then I am a neo-colonialist. That is simply what it means. Today, we blame the leaders. Today, we blame the agendas, that the agendas are not Afrocentric. If you look at most of the leadership, they all studied in the Western educational system, and they never question how were our indigenous or adaptable, how can they adapt this to our African realities and our systems? So it means every diaspora has a key role to detox, first of all. What are the policies that they are bringing in terms of development? If I am bringing Pan-Africanism, you know, from an Afrocentric point of view, what are the cultures that are inherited through my education, through my integration into Germany that I'm bringing onto the continent? Is it good? Is it applicable? Is it realistic? And that's why we see even most of the developmental projects that are brought on the continent doesn't work. They end at a particular level because they don't reflect the realities and the daily life of the African. Okay, they bring royal projects. We can name thousands of them that the West have put money that they have taken even as credit. You know, our leaders have taken as credit and never had function. So neocolonialism starts by any African that has anything to do with the West. And the way you study, the way you learn it, and you say, I want to bring that development to my people, it is not bad. It is not a bad thing to copy the good things. How did Germany even build its unique culture to become one of the strongest nations in Europe? That is what my research is all about. But it doesn't mean I'm going to take the A of Germany did like this. I have to do it in Africa. I have to adapt it to the realities of my culture, of my indigenous religion, of my food, of my color, of my thinking. How were my ancestors thinking before, right? How did I live a village life where I saw the ecology, where I saw everything was natural, where I saw the unity and the love among my people? But I'm into a culture that people are more oriented individually. It doesn't matter whether they say they are leaving their continent to come to look for greener pastures, but when they come, they integrate in these cultures and they bring back this toxic, the way they want to see Africa develop, it will never work.
Okay, appreciate it. Another question, presumably and arguably, Africa is the origin of mankind and endowed with both natural and historical and cultural resources as well. These days, the Westerners smuggle lots of minerals. We can name it, right? We can name like they export and take cacao, platinum, gold, diamond, ivories, timber, leather products to Europe and to the US. In the meantime, we also say Africa was the origin of civilization at some time in history, but the continent is still stagnant. What went wrong?
Yes, we cannot disagree that we are the origin of mankind and humanity. It means sometimes when I talk with my brothers and sisters, German and white people, I always tell them the fact that you are white Africans. As a matter of fact, that's the way you should have been called. And I think that's also a narrative that would come sometimes in the generations to come. Humanity, as we know from the human Homo sapiens, are the origins, for all of these origins came from Africa. So how did it become that some of our brothers that are white-skinned, called Europeans, are claiming to be the supreme or supremacist race in all these theories, right? So if we would go, like I told you from the beginning, on the fundamentals of humanity, we will all realize that we are all Africans worldwide. I tell them all the time, you are an African, just a white African. And we see it. Now, the smuggling of our resources, it means there is a white brother that is doing an illicit business with a black brother. So what are we saying? the enemies, or those that are perpetrating those acts, now the face is no longer white. The face is black. It means these are a systematic, how do I call it? We can call it thieves that are put into a sector, be it who, but that are doing this business together. So they are both. So we are not always going, like I said, it is not time to keep blaming. Yes, it is the West that are doing it. They are not doing it this time in a white color face. They are doing it in a black color face. We have to get it very clear. We would sit on this agenda and talk and talk and talk until we go back to the fundamentals of teaching our people what it is that is meant to be an African. Why doesn't it happen in other races or in other continents like China? Why doesn't it happen in a continent or in a country like Europe? Never. You can never ask a European child, just ask a question to say, give me, I want to bribe your brother. The first question he's going to ask you is why? And if you don't give him an answer, he will not understand why he should give you, a contact to kill one another or to do illicit business. What is it meaning? It means the Europeans have taught their children about nationalism. They have taught their people and their system to defend their territory, to love their resources, to protect the integrity, to protect the culture and the identity. It doesn't matter whether it's a business culture, that's why even we can shout as Africans and saying the West is exploiting the African continent. Germans don't believe it because they have been taught the values to stand for the integrity of their people. That is what we should start teaching the African child. When you see a Chinese in Africa, the African child doesn't question, what is he doing there? We are so open because of our nature. We are so generous. We are so hospitable. We welcome them with drums and dancing at our airport and tell them, oh, you're welcome. When I went to Ethiopia, yes, because I'm just an African coming from Germany, I was welcome at the airport with songs and dance and music and flowers. Nobody questioned my intention in Ethiopia. Nobody looked, where am I going? Why am I here? Who am I meeting? What business do I have here? They took my passport. Okay, you have a visa, or you're coming from Germany, or you have to meet His Excellency, you have to meet this, and that was it. An African child has to be taught the value of his continent, to be vigilant, to know that nobody can come through you to gain your neighbor. Nobody can come through you to gain your resources. They don't even know this platinum, this gold, this resources that we're talking. As an African child, they have no idea. So who are the ones to negotiate this business on the continent when we don't teach our children about history? When we don't teach them the knowledge of who they are, when we don't teach them the geography, the history, the natural resources that they own, that they are sitting on. The African youth today, they are rising on the street. They are crossing the Mediterranean. Did you think, my brother, if they knew for 1 second that they are sitting on the richest continent on the globe, they would leave their continent? Our education is the problem. We have to go back to the fundamentals. Which books are our children reading at school? Who is teaching them? What curriculum are they operating on? I studied European history and I had a major in it. I knew about Hitler and the Nazis and Napoleon Wars and everything. You know it even more than the African history. But ask me where Namibia, where the resources are in Zimbabwe, where the minings are. An African child will never give you. That is the fundamental reason why we must go back to culture education. What do you own? Who are you as an African? What are your resources? What are the opportunities? What do you protect on your continent? If you see a foreigner, what are they doing there? Do they come and give you biscuits and sweets and tell you and laugh at you? But at the end of the day, you give them the access to your leaders to do business with them. It is about us. We have to wake up. No, the West will never give us the freedom that we need to negotiate.
Okay.
The West will never give us the education that we need. to negotiate against them. So it is upon us to start teaching our own history, our culture, our knowledge, and to teach our people to love and own and defend Africa with everything necessary.
Great. You have been to Ethiopia twice, I guess, right?
Yes.
How was your stay, and would you tell us a thing that you noted about Ethiopia?
Exactly. I think, and that's why I'm so proud to always talk about the land of the origin. I like the way Ethiopia has changed its slogan from Horn of Africa. We know it's still Horn of Africa, but to put a global communication slogan to say the land of the origins, right? And that was the first thing that I looked at Ethiopia and I said, I want to know if Ethiopia is land of the origin. So I am an origin of Ethiopia. So when I traveled to Ethiopia, the first thing that I met, the moment I set my foot at Addis, I get this feeling I'm welcome home. I get this feeling I'm on motherland. I get this feeling, nobody asked me which country are you coming from. My brothers, my sisters at the airport, they welcome me. They even gave me their handies to call the contacts that had to pick me up. They asked, do you want help? Where are you going to? The taxis were all in order. But the first thing that I realized, even when I got into Ethiopian Airlines, which is the biggest bird on the continent, was that, you know, this language, talking in Amharic, and the beautiful hostesses, the smiles, you know, you can see a sister just smile at you and that energy was there. You know, and then the meals that we ate, everything, the music that you listen, the movies that you watch in it, everything was all about culture. Now you get to the airport, they welcome, they talk, the people greet you, they salute you. You are one of them. They don't look at you different. The color identity is unique. Now you move into your location to stay. Even those people, I'm telling you, Ethiopia is the first country where I see people don't take tips. And I was shocked. I was like, what? You go to a waiter and they dance and they serve you good food. We ate injera and all that with the hands and everything was so tasty and so good. But then when I gave a tip, because in Germany it's almost a culture to give a tip, right? And when I gave a tip and they say, no, thank you, you're welcome to Ethiopia. I was like, what? You bought a taxi where I went to all those places. I went to Lalibula. I went to all these islands just to get the touch to mother continent, Africa through Ethiopia. And you see everybody welcomes you. Another thing that I saw in Ethiopia that I didn't see in any place on the continent, I'm still to do my continental tour and the diaspora, but you know, there is a strategy of boarding the buses, like, you know, where the people get into this clandestine or to motorbikes and everybody is just standing in the line. You know, when you come, you just queue up. There is no way I have seen it in any West African country. The bus stops are always choked. People are fighting to get on the bus. But in Ethiopia, it is a lineup. People just stand in that line and you go by order. I think I cannot even talk a lot because Ethiopia is just the land of the origins for the African. And I think it is not any mistake that even the political headquarters where our African Union is sitting, it is in Addis. It is because it has all that it takes to bring back the children into nature. When I visited the Rastafari movement in Ethiopia, oh my God, how do you want me to explain that feeling of walking barefooted, of just, you know, sharing a space with my brothers and sisters, natural, in a natural environment? Everything about Ethiopia. I'm not saying that Ethiopia is so perfect in everything. I went also to Adwa and how do they call this town where, you know, where the covenant is said to be in that cathedral. I also visited that cathedral and I made pictures and I saw the monk that is estimated to be the oldest monk that is keeping that covenant that we all know in the Bible. That, you know, I went to the village of Queen Sheba. I went to the museum and I visited Lucy, the origins. Yeah, I connected and I talked to Lucy and I said, your daughter is here. Please, what is it that you want to do for our people? So Ethiopia, I don't know how I can start from where to where. I'm calling everybody to join us in Ethiopia next year, 2020. Let us just be on that mother continent, the land of origins, and we take that spirit of our ancestors, right? Of Haile Selassie,
Okay,
of the
good.
great origins and the queens, back to our people.
Well put. Well put. And it is really a top-notch insight about Ethiopia.
No,
Let
but
me
one
add
more
one.
thing. I got presents from Ethiopia today, from my community, because I have a huge community in Ethiopia, women particularly from Adowa, that gave me a lot of presents, right? They gave me traditional pots, they gave me traditional basket. We made pictures together. They taught me how to dance the Ethiopian dance with, you know, with the soldiers and stuff like that. So it is amazing. Ethiopia is amazing.
Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, is known by promoting Pan-African agenda. Recently, on his inaugural speech, he summoned and welcomed some African leaders, and they made a very fascinating and worth mentioning speech about the way how to bring solidarity and African unity during on that inaugural ceremony. For instance, Ismail Omar Guelleh, president of Djibouti, made a wonderful speech about Pan-Africanism and African unity. And Uhuru Kenyatta, president of Kenya, was there. President of South Sudan, Salva Kiir Mayardit, was there. And again, Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed, president of Somalia, was there. And another, Muhammad Buhari, president of the Federal Democratic Republic of Nigeria, was there. And they all vote on the way how strengthening African solidarity. What would you like to say about the work is being done by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in promoting Pan-Africanism and working on strengthening the African continent solidarity among us, each nation?
As a daughter of the continent, and I really applaud that move. We saw it from when he became a president and the prime minister, I'm sorry, and we saw Ethiopia also getting our queen, we call her our queen mother, as the president to lead. That was already a paradigm shift, right, to integration, the female energy also as a mother in that leadership. So I want to first of all congratulate his prime minister on that convention, which he picked out these excellencies on the continent, and even just putting a focus on a united solidarity agenda is already a good step. I know most of us, we're still on the level of people to people, but we have to move apart from that. Am I saying that His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Abiy is not doing some things that are not politically fitting in the eyes of Africans? No. But what am I saying? I'm saying a right foot in the right direction at the right time is the perfect start. And it is laid upon us as the citizens to take this initiative and make everything good out of it. So I applaud that meeting, and I applaud all the excellencies that are there. It is a right step in the right direction. Of course, if you look at the past, we never had these sittings. We never had even had the leaders even talking on the Pan-African agenda. It has been long forgotten. But I also think that the leaders pick the movement of the citizens. Dr. Abiy, I know as Prime Minister, listen to the people, watch the movement, listen and talk to the youth, He must have seen and been inspired by the Pan-African movement worldwide, from the diaspora to the continent. He must have been inspired by the questions that Africans are asking worldwide. How do we get citizens when we get back to the continent, our diasporans? We're not talking only about the Africans on the continent. Particularly, this agenda will never be complete if we don't bring back our brothers and sisters in the diaspora to form this one Africa family, this union that we are talking about. So I think it was a right step, like I said, in the right direction. It is called upon us now, the people, to join the steps and give our leaders all the support that they need. Yes, it doesn't mean that we will not criticize them, but critics is not a bad way. It is even a positive way forward. Because we don't criticize them, it means that we are politicizing. We're being politically correct. So I want to thank him very much. And I think I would also like to have an opportunity to get one-on-one with him, and I will be in Ethiopia and all the other presidents. We have to feel each other. Is this agenda? Is it just another talk? Or it is something that we know that is going to yield fruit? Because we cannot work without the leadership. So I thank him for this agenda, and I thank all the presidents that were there, and I thank the motive that were there. But we want to see now the steps that are being put to implement all what was being said. It's not about the good speeches. We love them so much. We're inspired. We're motivated. We from the Pan-African Daily take those speeches, break them down, analyze them, criticize them, look at it from a critical thinking, and then we bring back our feedback to the people. But our common goal, support the leadership, encourage them, motivate them. Let us build a one Africa agenda. We cannot build an agenda when we are against each other, when we are against the leadership against the people. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Dr. Susan Tatah, founder and program host on Pan-African Daily TV. I would like to say thank you very much for your insight and scholarly presentation. Have a good one. Thank you for sharing your valuable time. Bye-bye.
Thank you so very much for having me, and thank you. One love for Africans, one Africa for Africans worldwide. Thank you very much.
Dear viewers, you've been watching Talk to OBN show. This brings you the end of our edition for today. See you next time with another edition. Bye-bye. Take care.